Look down at your shoes. Look at the tires on every car that passed you today. None of it would hold its shape in summer heat or winter cold without a discovery made by one man, a man who chased it for 10 years while his children went hungry, who was thrown into prison again and again, and who handed the world a material worth billions. He never saw a dollar of it. He died owing a fortune. Some people change the world, and the world never learns their name. This is without whom. His name was Charles Goodyear. He was born in 1800 in New Haven, Connecticut, the eldest of 6 children. He had almost no training as a chemist. He was a hardware man, the son of a hardware man. He was gentle, deeply religious, and stubborn in a way that would one day cost him everything. And then he picked up a piece of rubber, and he could not put it down. In those years, rubber was both a craze and a disaster. Factories had sprung up promising waterproof boots, but the gum hid a terrible flaw. In summer, it melted into a stinking glue. In winter, it cracked like stone. When Goodyear, a failing merchant, held one of those ruined goods, he did not see junk. He saw a puzzle the whole world had given up on. Everyone told him it was hopeless. Smarter men had already quit. But Goodyear became convinced that he had been chosen to solve it. He had no money, no scientific training, no backers. What he had was a certainty that bordered on madness. He began mixing raw rubber with anything he could find, on his stove, with his bare hands, hunting for the one thing that would tame it. He could not have picked a worse moment. His father's business had collapsed, and the family was sliding toward ruin. To buy rubber and chemicals, he sold the furniture out of his own home. And when he could not pay what he owed, the law did what it did to poor men with debts. It put him in prison. So he asked his wife to bring him rubber and worked from his cell. For years it went like this. He would find a backer, show a promising batch, then watch the goods rot months later. He boiled the rubber, soaked it in acid, and once nearly killed himself on the fumes. He won a government contract to make mailbags, and they sagged and spoiled in the heat. Each failure burned another last chance. Then, in 1839, in a small factory in Massachusetts, it happened. Others had already guessed that sulfur might help, but no one knew why. As the story is told, Goodyear was holding a lump of rubber and sulfur when it flew from his hand onto a hot stove. He expected it to melt. Instead, it charred like leather and held its shape. Heat, it turned out, was the answer all along. He nailed the scorched scrap to his door that night, out in the cold. By morning, it was still flexible, still strong, where ordinary rubber would have shattered. He knew in that instant that he had found it. But knowing and proving are two different things. He still could not control the process, and almost no one believed the ragged, sickly man who insisted he had beaten the gum. It took 5 more years of poverty to turn that lucky accident into a reliable method. 5 more years of borrowing, of dragging his family from town to town, of children who did not survive those hungry winters. But at the end of it, he held a way to make rubber that stayed strong in any weather. In 1844, he finally received his patent. The world was about to change. But Goodyear was a dreamer, not a businessman. He sold the rights to his process for far too little. He spent what he earned on more experiments, instead of guarding what was his. And as the money began to flow, the wolves arrived. Rival manufacturers simply copied his method and dared him to stop them. His great discovery had 100 thieves and only one exhausted, indebted owner. Across the ocean, it was even worse. An English manufacturer got hold of samples of his rubber, studied them, and raced to patent it. In England, the prize went to whoever filed first, not whoever invented first. The Englishman won the British patent for the very process Goodyear had bled for. In time, he would lose his rights in England and in France, and watch strangers grow rich on his life's work. At home, the thefts piled into the courts. To defend his patent, Goodyear poured in money he did not have, sinking deeper with every lawsuit. He was the inventor of a material now in daily use, and he was drowning. His health was broken from years of chemical fumes. He could barely walk without crutches, and still the copycats sold his rubber and pocketed the profits. Finally, the fight came to a head in one great trial. Goodyear's side hired the most famous lawyer in the country. In a packed courtroom, the old statesman thundered that the process belonged to Goodyear and to no one else. For one shining moment, justice itself seemed ready to find the forgotten inventor. And it did. In 1852, the court ruled decisively that Charles Goodyear, and Goodyear alone, was the true inventor of vulcanized rubber. His patent was upheld. After 2 decades of ridicule and ruin, here at last was vindication. A court telling the world the ragged man had been right all along. It should have been the start of his fortune. It was very nearly the end of his story. Because the victory did not save him. The years of cheap licenses and endless lawsuits had already swallowed the money. Abroad, his rights were gone for good. He sailed to Europe to build new factories, and failed there too. And then, in the very country that had just honored his rubber, the final cruelty came. In a foreign capital, the man who had handed the world a fortune was thrown into a prison for debt. And here is the moment that says everything about his life. While Charles Goodyear sat in that cell for owing money, the Emperor of France named him a knight of one of the nation's highest honors. The medal was reportedly delivered to him behind bars, celebrated and imprisoned in the very same breath. The world wanted his rubber. It simply did not want to pay the man who made it. Think of what he had given them. Rubber that could seal an engine, cushion a wheel, keep a soldier dry, save a life at sea. An entire industry was rising on his discovery, and the inventor at the root of it could not settle his own bills. Yet he never grew bitter. He wrote that a man has just cause for regret only when he sows a seed and no one reaps it. His body finally gave out in 1860. He was traveling to reach a daughter who had fallen gravely ill. On the way, word came that she had already died. The grief was more than his ruined frame could bear. He collapsed and was carried to a hotel, where he died at the age of 59. He left a grieving family and debts of some $200,000. The richest idea of the age had made its inventor a pauper. Nearly 40 years later, a businessman who had never met him founded a rubber company and chose a name to honor the man who started it all. He called it Goodyear. Today that name rides on millions of wheels, and almost no one who sees it knows there was a real Charles Goodyear, a gentle, stubborn man who chased a miracle through prison and poverty and never gave up. He died believing the work itself had been worth it, even if the reward never came. That every sleepless night had been part of something larger than his own comfort. And he was right. The material he tamed is still everywhere you look, quietly holding the modern world together. He sowed, and the whole world reaped. He asked only to be remembered. The world you live in was built by people you have never heard of. And now you know one more name, Charles Goodyear. Like and subscribe and stick around, because the textbooks left a lot out. Thanks for watching.